Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Todd Ronan from realityforecast.com and at Reality Forecast on YouTube. I'm joined with Liz Cross, and we have joining us today, sitting in the Mind Probe chair, the famed author Philip K. Dick, who, if you've seen any science fiction movies in the last 30 years, you may not know his name, but born 1928, died 1982. Liz, how are you this morning?
Great. Especially after that CTT, my brain was fried.
Yeah, we did a meditation this morning, which was fantastic. I wonder if we could talk to famed author Philip K. Dick this morning.
He's here. He's ready to answer your questions.
Welcome, Mr. Philip. How are you?
Great, now that I'm on the other side.
How do you describe what it's like in the afterlife versus your experience here on Earth?
How do you describe what's the afterlife? Well, now this is an answer very specific to him, because with him being a sci-fi author, he was just out there, right? Now, For those of you that have been following me for a long time, I'm not into the sci-fi stuff, so this is going to be a good probe. He loves it. He loves being able to see what's out there. And he says, and he's rubbing his hands together. He says, I'm gathering more material for my next lifetime.
Are there any technical developments that you see in augmented reality for us humans in the next 5 to 7 years?
Are there any technological advancements that you see from augmented reality? Many advancements coming our way. First thing he wants to talk about is gas and oil. He says those are going to be obsolete. Are you sure this is going to be in about 5 to 7 years? It's heading that way. He says, and it's a good thing. He says there's so much power in the universe that we should be tapping into that, and only a small portion of that power could actually fuel our cars.
Does he see the powers that be letting that come forth, or are they still going to try and keep us trapped in an electricity cycle?
Are they going to bring that forward? No, they're going to kick the can. His words, kick the can down the road as much as possible and prevent this from coming in. This is a total upheaval to life as we know it.
So not anytime soon that we'll have dependency on electricity evaporate.
Not anytime soon that we have. No, but it's a work in progress. And that's what the world needs to be free of, is having to have some form of energy turn into, another form of energy. He believes that you can just pull this energy. You can create a device, create something that harvests this energy from the universe.
We could talk about that in a future show, about how to create such a device from the mind of Philip K. Dick. Do you believe that humans will be able to understand the nature of reality, or is it too complicated?
Do you think humans
while living
understand? No, you have to completely drop the body and move off the earth plane to understand what this is all about. And even then, you don't have access to the 100% understanding. It's all veiled. It's all kept under wraps. Like it's the big secret that nobody's allowed to know.
What is that secret?
What is that secret? He says they don't let me know either. He's quite funny, actually. But the big secret is how the universe works. And if humans were able to crack that code, of how the universe works. We would become unstoppable, but we would also become very dangerous, dangerous to the powers that be. We would become out of control. We would predetermine our own destiny, not only before we get to the earth plane, but whilst on the earth plane, we would be able to modify it to our liking. This would not benefit the soul.
Does he see genetic augmentation and genetic manipulation hindering soul growth?
What does genetic manipulation hinder the soul growth? Not necessarily. It's just changes the soul growth, right? We manipulate our genetics all the time off the earth plane. We reincarnate with soul families that maybe we need to dispose of things that are in their genes, right? So if you have a soul family that genetically DNA is, predisposed to obesity, addictions, certain flaws and characteristics, and they're just not working out for you on the earth plane, well, then you have the option to still grow within that soul family, but using another's DNA.
Are there any particular society trends that you feel will negatively affect people's identity in the future?
Do you see any particular societal trends that will negatively? No, because he said that kind of stuff is all irrelevant. All it means is that you're soul searching and you're doing all sorts of things to try to find that soul, to try to reconnect with that soul. It's like somebody who undergoes like many plastic surgeries and they just can't stop. It becomes compulsive because they think with every modification, or implant or lift or whatever it is, Botox, they think that they're getting closer to who they really are. But what that is actually doing, it's pushing you further away from who you really are. The stuff that's on the outside is relatively unimportant to what is on the inside of a person.
What steps can he suggest to get closer to your inside or soul while we're here on Earth?
Good question. What steps do you suggest to get closer to? It's gonna have to be like, there's various ways to do it. Meditation. He quite liked meditation. A lot of his ideas came from meditation. I feel like he was a bit of an astral traveler. You know what I mean? Like he would sort of leave the earth plane through meditation, being able to connect to what's out there. That's where he got a lot of his material from.
So meditation, deep within the self, look for those ideas. What smell does he most miss from Earth?
That's what smell do you most? That's an interesting question. What smell do you most miss from Earth? His mother's cooking, or somebody's cooking, like grandmother or mother's cooking. It has nothing to do with the particular smell, but sort of what brings about strong emotional attachment to smells, right?
Memory,
That's such
evocation,
an
feeling.
interesting question.
Does he think that time is linear or cyclical?
Time is linear or cyclical? It's neither here nor there. It just is.
Does he see anybody working on time travel currently or within the next 10 years here on Earth?
Ooh. Loads of people are working on time travel here and Successfully? No, not successfully, other than the transportation of your consciousness.
The transportation of your consciousness, is that augmented by any type of technology, or is it best done just with your meditation techniques?
Technology? No, it's being able to let go of the consciousness and allow it to go freely wherever it needs to go. Now, a lot of people are doing that with psychedelics, ayahuasca, things like that. He says, though it's irrelevant, you don't need those things, they're unnecessary. If you can train yourself to let go of your consciousness and to go wherever it wants to go. That's what he did.
Are there any limitations that we have in spirit with moving through time?
No, you can go wherever you want to go.
Anywhere we want to go. Did some of his writings come from his experiences on different solar systems and different galaxies?
He says it came from different levels of consciousness, and how you go to these different places, galaxies, solar systems, wherever you want to go, you have to achieve a level of consciousness. I feel like he could really adjust his consciousness in many different ways. He had that ability. Were you a psychic or were you a medium? He was psychic, actually.
We're coming up on the precipice of artificial intelligence, a theme in a lot of your books. What warnings do you have for where we're at and what we need to be concerned about in the near future?
A total takeover.
Does he see us getting close to that?
Very close. We're close to it now. All that, and you know, how many times have we got this, Ronan?
Yes.
And all the, you know what I mean? And again, this is another confirmation that this is a takeover. It's another war. This is another weapon of war. This is a way to take you over without you even realizing it.
Can you see who is behind that war and who's pushing the artificial intelligence?
Who's behind the war? The governments, big tech, they're all working together.
To what is their end game?
What is their end game? Power.
Power over the unconscious, power over the soul.
Power over the soul. They would love to be able to have power over the soul. I said power over the unconscious. Yeah, it's basically power over the whole person, the mind, body, and the soul. They basically can feed into you whatever information they want to feed in, and you have to comply.
So there's always a struggle for power of the individual from the politics. What can people do to not let politics overtake their life?
What can people do to not let politics? Completely unplug and go off the grid. You would become ignorant to what is going on in the outside world. And that's a very difficult thing for people to do, to completely disconnect from every existence out there but their own. Of course, you need to have the financial means to be able to do that as well. Basically, you just live in isolation, and that is impossible. You know, see, they've got us. This is so true what he's saying. He's like, they got you, because the way humans are built, we have to have that human connection, right?
Right.
All tech is doing is hijacking that connection. So instead of us connecting, you know, in the old ways, which is face to face, hearing somebody's familiar voice, connecting by, being together, being at parties or being at gatherings, being in the workplace, being in school. This is a total disruption to the human connection. And as we're severing these connections and giving them over to big tech, then they dictate the connection. He's saying once you have power over this human connection, you basically create, you create a load of parasites, right? Because they're no longer looking to others for human connection. Now they're looking to the connection through tech, and they're being fed whatever tech wants them to be fed. That we become reliant upon tech as the connection. And this is going to become a normal way of life. What is so interesting, Ronan, is that we did those probes. The probe we did, I think it was last week, about the future of addictions and how we're, And everybody's like, oh my God, this is so scary. This is so crazy. I'm frightened. It's giving me anxiety. But when I probed it out again, those people don't know anything different. The way that we're living now, they cannot identify with. They won't have any emotional connection to the way we live now. Okay, maybe a few people here and there that like history, but most of all, people will be into this new realm of existence, and this will seem really strange to them. So whilst people are panicking and have anxiety about what's to come for the future, the majority will not, because they won't know anything different than the way that they're living.
In later life, you wrote more about religious themes. Do you see people turning more away from religion and more into tech as a substitute?
Ooh, these are good questions. The people turn away. They'll completely abandon religion, and tech will be the source of everything. So it'll be the source of how we think, our moral code, how we believe. It's the big takeover. He keeps saying it over and over again. This is it, folks. This is it. This is the big takeover.
In your opinion, is there a connection between spirituality and technology, or are they at odds?
Ooh, well, the soul is at odds with technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the soul is dependent upon the human connection to recreate life lessons. Now the tech will recreate those life lessons. So now they have to program the tech into the lifetime. So before, your life lessons were, maybe passing someone on the street but I'm looking like 100 years out, by the way. Now you have to incorporate tech into the programming so that you're meeting these people online. And the big issue with meeting people online is you never get to know the true self of somebody. So people can mask and hide themselves, online.
Right.
And that deep connection that we have to other people, we could be spilling our guts out to somebody else, and you don't know if you're talking to a robot. You don't know if you're talking to like a genuine person. Is it a fraudster that's trying to steal all your information? You just don't know. So we become really lost in these deep emotional connections, and the soul has got to then design the life around that. So if you think that at the point where the soul is divining the life plan, a lot of these things aren't even into existence yet. So think about back when people were designing their life plan before TV came into play and before digital radio and the internet.
The acceleration is so quick now, right?
And so Now this just makes the programming more complex. And with tech, part of the soul's quest and the soul's mission is to unravel and understand like what we're doing here. And it's going to become much harder with our connectivity to tech, our soul connection to tech. So instead of like a book.
Some have speculated that there's an ET silicone component to that agenda takeover. Does he see that now or not?
An ET silicone. Do you believe that? That's a good question. That extraterrestrials are responsible for this tech movement? No, but he does believe that. So I understand this, right? He does believe it's a tool of the dark. Now, maybe the reason some people are getting ETs in their sessions, right? Because the dark likes to mask itself, and the dark can mask itself behind an ET. So, I've said this before. When people are sitting there channeling aliens and doing all this stuff, and I'm a Palladian, I'm a starseed, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm getting my information from these outside sources. And when I say outside sources, those that are not bound by soul law, right? Because these things don't have a soul. And at least I haven't found one that has a soul yet. Maybe somewhere out there is, and I hope to find them someday. But right now, I haven't found that. So maybe people are connecting or getting information that ET is behind this to make it look not so dark, because we're becoming more ET friendly. We're becoming more dependent upon ET for information. Certainly I do it too. Like in small doses, I channel outside things to find out the answers. And so that could be the reason, the component behind it, but it's actually the dark in operation.
What suggestions does he have people can do daily to reconnect with their self besides unplug and move off the grid and live in a log cabin? We can't all do that.
Right. Not if you want to make money. And you want to raise kids, and you want to, you know what I mean? And you want to eat, and you want, unless you're prepared to go back to Little House on the Prairie days. What can we do each day? You're going to have to make sure you set out time each day and find a modality that speaks to the soul, that engages the soul, that reinvigorates the soul, that feels comfortable and that works. And you're going to have to spend time with your soul on a daily basis. The soul can give you a lot of information, a lot.
The deeper you go, the larger it becomes. I always find the works of Philip K. Dick are amazing. I mean, if you like reading science fiction, he writes so much and it had so much knowledge. And what does he wish that he could have written about that he wasn't able to on the earth plane?
What could you? He wishes he would have gone into the more complexities of the human and the human brain. He didn't study the human brain enough.
Does he see the disconnect between the brain and the higher mind as more close to spirit, I guess? What does he see as the difference? What can the mind do that the brain can't?
Well, the mind can travel. The brain cannot travel. So he wants to know why. He wants to know, like, find the answer and write stories about, how to make that happen. How do you make the brain travel with the mind? How do you make the brain vacate the body and then find its way back and still keep the person alive? How can the body function effectively without the brain? Because if you find a way to do that, then you remove, I understand where he's going with this. You remove the brain and then you can reconnect to the all knowing in the spirit world. It's the brain that shuts off that ability. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Well, it's been amazing and fascinating and illuminative to speak to you, Philip K. Dick. I hope everybody enjoyed this one. Hopefully we can revisit you again. Thank you so much for your time. And Liz, thank you so much for your time.
This was great. I'm sure my kids will love this. They're into sci-fi.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you next time.